Live in. We are live and recording. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome from me, Alex Chisnell from the Festival of Enterprise. I'm joined by my old friend, Ollie Forsyth. How the devil are you doing, sir?
Hey. Very well. How are you? Long time.
I know. A couple of years maybe now, I'm thinking. Something like that.
Is it really?
It's got to be. It's got to be.
That's crazy, isn't it? How time just
flies
so quickly.
I know. We've done a lot of similar things with regards to events, podcasts, networking, building community. So lots to chat about today. We're going to try and focus it around that, really, building a community and network around your business, which is something that Ollie's done from a really young age, to be honest with you. I give you, those of you who haven't met Ollie before or seen him on any of these platforms. So he left school age 16 without qualifications, but always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So he started his first business called Ollie's Shop, aged just 13, an online shop, gift shop for teenagers. Since then, he's appeared in that many press articles on TV, radio, press, podcast, you name it. I couldn't begin to start. And he's also founder of the Makers podcast, which you probably have seen over the last 2 to 3 months, maybe, because you've had some amazing guests. I'm a big rugby fan, so I saw you had Chris Robshaw on there, but you've, former England captain, but you've also had Jonathan Ross, Kelly Holmes, Alexandra Burke, really diverse. So really interesting. And now he's also got a role with Draper Esprit, which is a leading VC firm investing in later stage technology companies. They've backed companies such as Revolut, Trustpilot, TransferWise. So a bunch of them that I've actually interviewed, interestingly enough. So there's loads of parallels in here, which is interesting. And Ollie, I'm just going to say shout out. Thank you, Parissa, Emma, John, Soki, all joining us as well. So thank you wherever you are in the country. Let us know where you are. I'm thinking the whole country's bathed in sunshine. It certainly is here in Poole, and I can clearly see, Ollie, where you're near Silverstone.
You can see behind, but it's...
Yeah, it looks amazing, doesn't it?
Great to be here. Thanks so much for... Yeah, no, it's been quite nice. I've been... So our office closed, I think it's about 12 weeks now, 13 weeks. And it's kind of crazy how quickly it's gone. In a way, I am looking forward to going back, of course, once it's safe to do so. We'll come into it, but from like a community person, you're used to meeting 50, 100 new people a week. Yeah. Whereas I haven't really seen anyone in 12 weeks, 13 weeks. But I love doing these. So at least you get to interact with people virtually.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I literally had somebody swung by. Yeah, they were just literally walking down my road. I live down a lane where there's only like 6 houses and a woods opposite. And guy was walking past with his daughter, and his daughter's friends with my daughter. I just gave him a wave, and they like came up at the end of the driveway, and we had a brief conversation with him. And he said, I can't wait to get back to normal society, because he said, I've literally just gone from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on back-to-back calls with clients on Zoom. And he said, the energy isn't there. He said, I don't know what you think. He thought that for short bursts, it worked. But if you had, I think he was saying, everyone he had was like 25 people on, with all the faces and everybody wanting their bit to talk. And I think it's tough then, isn't it? Because you know what it's like when you're doing live events, you look somebody in the eyes, ask them a question, and you feel the energy from the crowd, don't they? And you've done a ridiculous number of events like me. And what are your thoughts? Do you think people are craving that kind of human interaction again, Ollie?
I think yes and no. I think it's going to be, I don't have an answer, to be honest. I think it'll be interesting to see once events start resuming. I don't think many people will go to that many events for the rest of the year. It's definitely slightly larger events. I think smaller events are slightly easier to handle, as you can do the 1 meter or 2 meter social distancing rule. But at the end of the day, it's not when events can resume, it's when people have the confidence to go back to events. And some people are fine to go back, some people are not comfortable. I think it's opened a whole new range of opportunity for people to do events online. When people are used to traveling to events all around the country or all over the world and globe, will that happen as much when you can stream online from the comfort of your office or home? I'm not sure, but how about you? I mean, you do a lot more events than I do nowadays. So it'd be interesting from an organizer point of view. It'd be quite
Mm.
interested to hear
Yes,
your thoughts.
yeah, it's interesting. Just here at the Festival Enterprise, we've been getting people asking us about exhibiting at the NEC in October, and we weren't even expecting that. We were literally thinking,
Really?
yeah, we'd like to keep that date, available, that we were going to be at the NEC, because who knows, things are literally changing by the day, by the week. But we were unsure again what the appetite would be, because a number of companies, a number of the tech companies have put stuff back all the way till next June 2021, before attending events
Mm.
and things like that. And that just seems such a long way away, because it's gone quickly, isn't it? I think it's actually gone
It's crazy.
quickly now. I think I've accomplished a lot. I don't know about you, but have you been working the whole time as well? I assume you have been, knowing you.
Yeah, no, been working full time. So to give you an idea about Draper Esprit, we typically back later stage tech companies.
Yeah.
So from late Series A and beyond. So for those not familiar with kind of fundraising, we invest anywhere from £5 million and beyond, basically. So £5 to £30 million. Some of our portfolio companies include like sort of Revolut, Trustpilot, and TransferWise, who Alex you mentioned earlier. There are four key sectors we really like to focus on: consumer tech, such as fintech, digital health, SaaS and enterprise, and deep tech and hardware. We're a team of 40 based in London. We've got a small office in Dublin and Cambridge as well. And we're all about just backing amazing European focused companies. There's some really cool stuff going on in tech at the moment. This video conferencing platforms I think is super interesting.
Mm.
The future of work, the future of education, actually. How will young people be taught in the future? Will we see a bit more offline, online education, not so much in person? Um, I have a big interest in the passion economy. So, how will the world look for us, Gen Zs and millennials, in the next 5 or 10 years? So,
Mm.
I love companies that are disrupting the way we will all work and live in the future. I think it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and how things been moving in that space with regards to, we know the traditional model where people come in and they share their deck and their pitch to investors. Have you moved that model online? You've managed to keep in touch with a lot of those businesses that you would have had contact with 3 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to meet the founders who you're looking to back. I think it's slightly easier for earlier stage investors who are maybe doing pre-seed, seed rounds. For us, we do like to meet the founders.
Mm.
Um, we A lot of the founders we may already know, and that helps, or we've met before we kind of went into this lockdown period. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
And you had lots of questions around this over the last 2 or 3 months since you've been doing these webinars. What's the appetite for investments? Has that changed? And obviously, you could only speak for Draper Esprit, but yeah, how has your attitude changed during the last 3 months? Because I'd imagine it's probably gone in peaks and troughs as well.
Yeah, I mean, from a deal flow point of view, we are still seeing companies. So, for the audience who don't know, I head up our entrepreneurs community at Draper Esprit. So, I look at all the companies who are raising who have raised in the market in the previous week or months, to see who's raising, who we've been in touch with, who didn't we engage with. So, I think that there is still a lot going on. However, these sources are only done on when the deal was announced, not when it
Right.
was announced privately. So the data is a bit all over the place, not from a Crunchbase and a PitchBook, who we use, point of view. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next 2 to 3 months. Will we see a slight decrease? But for a Draper Esprit point of view, we are still very much open for business. Um, we invest in around 10 or 12 companies a year. We deploy around £100 million in capital, roughly. and we meet about 2,500 to 3,000 entrepreneurs a year who are looking to raise capital. And I just think there's some really cool stuff going on. I think especially for earlier stage companies, now is a really good time to look into new opportunities. Um, but who knows? I'm excited about lots of things.
And if you're on the the other side of the fence, and you've met a ridiculous number of entrepreneurs over the last half a dozen years, with a budding entrepreneurs network, etc. What would your advice be for those who are looking to get investment now, who've been used this opportunity to kind of double down on the work they've been doing in their business? Maybe they've pivoted as well, they've seen other opportunities, and they just want to talk to people to find out what the appetite is. Any advice in that?
Yeah. I mean, we'll come on to this building network, but I think you have to think about, first of all, what kind of advice do you want? So if it's on the fundraising advice, start speaking to slightly earlier stage investors. So it could be angel investors, successful entrepreneurs, or people who run their own business. They're actually pretty easy to get hold of, and it's always great to hear what they think. And as you get later, your network starts to develop. I think people just have to go and speak to people, if they're entrepreneurs, if they're investors, and just get a feel of what they are seeing in the market. I think something really useful for entrepreneurs on the line to do is just also read the news. It's a very simple thing, but you'll start to see what kind of companies are being raised, and being announced, what kind of companies are being written about also. And you can go onto the channels I mentioned earlier, Crunchbase and Pitchbook, which we use, and I think are absolutely great tools. And you can actively see all the time who's raising, what companies have just started, what companies have exited, and it's just such a good tool to use for founders to get some insights on what's going on in the markets. But I think just reversing back to your original question, people just got to start reaching out to people. I use LinkedIn and Twitter. That's probably the most effective. And just start small. You don't have to go to the top people straight away. Start small and start building your network up quite early. And always ask for instructions, whoever you meet.
Yeah. And do you think, again, we don't know when there are going to be physical events again, and what size they're allowed to be. And traditionally, especially the scene like London or any major town like that, people be looking to go to as any number of events any day of the week in London, for example, to build their network by physically meeting people. Obviously, a lot of these things would have been brought online. You mentioned LinkedIn, and any other tactics that you've thought about during the last couple of months, or just advice that's kind of pretty solid that stands the test of time when people are looking to build a network?
I mean, I think it's difficult to. I think there are a number of ways you can do it. So if you go back right at the beginning when you're just starting, so you don't have a network. First of all, you don't really have anything, so just try all channels and see what works. Twitter and LinkedIn definitely use. Just invite people and see what happens. As soon as you've kind of bagged your first one or two calls or meetings, that's when you can start getting a bit of momentum. And like I mentioned earlier, always ask for introductions. If your network is not very strong, these people who you're speaking to also know people. So always ask for instructions. And to be honest, most of the time, if you're friendly and you come over across well, people will be willing to introduce you. As you start to get bigger, you become a bit well known, either yourself or the business, and you can start reaching out to people and say, "Look, I've got this business. This is who we are to date. This is our traction. We're looking to X, Y, Z in the next 6 to 18 months. I would love to arrange a call with you or something." And I think especially for investors now, a lot of most investors are at home, so it's slightly easier to get a hold of them. And I think you should be using this time to just really, really build your network. It could be around investors, it could be around other entrepreneurs, it could be around media. Media people are always great people to know, especially podcast hosts. Alex has a great podcast show, so you should definitely check it out. Um, and I think it continues. I mean, it'll be different for other people, but you just got to really think about who do you want to connect with, what's the focus of your network and opportunity, and just really utilize that channel.
And you mentioned podcasts. Now, for me, it's been huge in building my network and also building a community of people who buy into what I do, who understand where I'm coming from. We've had physical events to try and again it's now 143 countries our podcast downloaded in, so trying to try and do a physical event somewhere kind of doesn't make sense, especially in like the last couple of months. It makes sense to kind of build that community online. Have you found like your podcast as well? Have you found that's been a great tool? Because some of the guests that I mentioned earlier have got massive reaches themselves, and for me, I always say one of the tactics for when you're launching a podcast is to if you're getting a couple of A-listers on, to get every guest, whether they're A-list or Z-list, to share that content with their audience, you will gain a percentage of their audience, and you've got a window of opportunity to educate and entertain them before they look elsewhere. So as long as you engage with them, you've got a massive opportunity to scale your own podcast. How's yours gone from literally cold start to getting guests like that? Any tips? Again, has it been lockdown? You found it easier to get hold of people? People are more open to coming onto a show?
Yeah, I think so. I started the podcast about 2 years ago now, 2 years in September, and the idea was always around interviewing entrepreneurs on how they've overcome particular challenges. Entrepreneurs go through many lows, but they have many challenges along the way, and they don't always talk about those challenges. And I think those challenges are the ones, those are the golden nuggets of information entrepreneurs should know about, so they don't make the same mistakes. And originally it was, I think my first couple of guests were actually entrepreneurs I've just known over the years. So I have Matt Barry, founder of freelancer.com, Simon Woodroff of Yo Sushi, who I've known for years. And like I kind of said earlier, as you start to get to know people, the network starts to develop. So I did the podcast purely around entrepreneurship for about 18 months. And I've always been really interested in seeing how can one build a network outside of their own fields, entrepreneurship. So I was thinking about launching a separate podcast show on basically interviewing household names. So you mentioned like James Haskell, the former rugby player. He does still play rugby actually. Musicians, Olympians, actors, actresses, etc. And I was thinking, right, do I launch a separate podcast show? You've got to think of a name, you've got to build your audience again. And I was thinking, like, it's just too complicated. Put it on the same podcast, diverse the attention from just entrepreneurs to as well as all the fields I mentioned. And I did this right at the beginning of lockdown, actually. And I got all my guests just through one medium, and now we're sending them an Instagram message. That's it. So I had people like actually I lied. The first one is an exception. I knew Alexandra Berg's agent quite well. I've known her for a number of years. And then that's your first mini break. And then people like Jonathan Ross and et cetera. But back to your original question around getting people to share the content, that was like the most frustrating thing at the beginning because people just don't share it.
Yeah.
And really, to be honest, I'd be very grateful to all the guests who've been on the show and very humbled. But the whole purpose is for them to share it as well.
Yeah.
I kind of see it like, why should they share it? They do this all the time. And the break really came when I did the Netflix co-founder. I think I did it in July last year, and I released it in September. ahead of his book that he did. But what I've started to do now is I thought, how can I build a better relationship with these people before the episode goes live? So I always give them a call before the podcast, before the interview, maybe a day before. We have a general chit chat at the beginning of the podcast. It's completely free flowing. It's not interview format. So it's a bit more friendly and down to earth. But the key thing is afterwards, I will share with them the artwork of what's going to be published, and I will just write the tweet for them, an Instagram post, and all they have to do is copy and paste it, and that's worked really well. And now I think we've got listeners in about 130 countries, in the charts in about 25 countries as well. But I think, I mean, it's like your podcast. Like, how did you, because you've had some big guests, how have you built your network, and how do you persuade your guests to share and talk about the podcast, and actually your listeners as well? Because I think that's a really important point. Your listeners are your guardian angels. They're the ones who are going to shout about the podcast. How do you go around that?
Yeah, and I'm exactly the same as you. I just make it as easy as possible for the guests to share the content. So literally, if you can create great assets for them to share, so they, it looks visually great, they're excited to share it. You've actually written the post for them. You've put the hashtags in there, and all they've got to do, like you say, is copy and paste it. And also trying to get a couple of people in their team engaged as well. So if that's their PA, if that's that personal brand manager, if that's the marketing director, whoever it is you can pull into that, asking them to share. And I always use, like, when I had James Haskell, former England rugby player, on my show, and I remember he did share it, and he just shared it on his business channel, which was called like James Haskell Fitness, something like that. And it got to something like number 4, and I just thought I was kind of expecting, a little bit higher than that, for given the fact he just retired. He was in all the broadsheet newspapers, etc. And I was just scrolling through Instagram on a Friday evening, and we'd released it on the Wednesday. It was up to number 4, and I could see he was doing a live DJ set at someone's party somewhere, I don't know, Ibiza, wherever it was. And I just thought, shall I? Yeah, go on then. And I literally just sent him a text, and I just said, Hask, don't suppose there's any chance you could share this on your personal channel? Is there? We're up to number 4, and I reckon this will give us a number 1. I just thought, he's a competitive guy. I thought, let's just build up, and I had a good relationship with him at that point, because like you, I'd made the effort to have a phone call beforehand, just general chit chat, talking rubbish. And that I'd worked out very early on that there was no way I'd be able to edit this podcast in any way, shape or form, because the F-bombs were just raining down on me every 3 seconds. And he literally did it. I literally just saw him pick up his phone while he was doing the Instagram live, literally write the post there. And before you know it, within 4 hours, it got to number 1. So, it was,
really? It was good.
Yeah, it's worth doing. I just think, like, so exactly the same as what you said, literally make it as easy as possible. It's all about relationship building. And follow up as well. Send them something physical as a thank you. I don't know, for those of you listening who've got a business, and it might be something branded that you could send them. I know loads, like Ollie will as well, know loads of, I'd call them, micro influencers, for example, who get sent loads of free stuff. People love getting free stuff. They'll wear it, they'll eat it, they'll take photos of it, etc. So make it really easy for people. Make it as easy as possible. And that's how I've built mine. And quite often I found it's not necessarily the biggest names, like say Richard Reed from Innocent, or Ray Kelvin from Ted Baker, because quite often, like you said, they can't be asked to actually share it themselves. But even the one I had this week with Karina Lepore, who won The Apprentice last year, it's actually her bakehouse, her business, that is sharing it, not her personally. And I just think if you can get more people involved in the conversation, and maybe it's their PR agency as well. Like I've found PR agencies really useful. in gaining really interesting guests. And 9 out of 10 of them I won't take because they're just trying to put an agenda on you for obvious reasons. But I think if you take some of their guests, you'll eventually kind of work your way up the ladder in those agencies, and they start offering you the Russell Brands at the top of their list, you know.
100%. And I think you mentioned that about working with these micro-influencers. If any of you on the line are looking to launch a podcast show and you do want to send your guest something, a lot of these small businesses are dying to work with these celebrities. And generally, if they're a good company, they will actually work with you. So essentially, they'll give you the free stuff to pass on to your guests as a thank you. So that's always a good way to work with a slightly smaller company, support them, and you can send your guests something as well. I definitely recommend, and you mentioned that working with PR companies, keep in touch with these people. They represent people all the time. I think it depends what type of podcast show you're looking to do. I always try and have the direct relationship with the guests because I want to keep in touch with them, and you know that might lead to opportunities down the line. But ultimately, those looking to do a podcast show, you've got to have a personal connection with your audience. So I actually have one guest on the show a couple of weeks ago who cried halfway through, and we were talking about a personal. They had a personal. So the media wrote about the story. It was Cassia Jones from Strictly Come Dancing. You guys can just check it out. And I think actually those types of conversations are the ones I like because they're the most honest. And the hardest part is getting people to open up about it. So I'm just about to finish my second series, which was talking about to people life in lockdown. My first series is talking to people life after lockdown. So I've just done Henry Blowfield. Any of you who are cricket fans?
Yeah.
Blow has just done him. Absolute like legend. So excited to share series 3 with you.
Awesome, love it. Sheridan's just posted up. I recommend trying the community canvas. It's a simple way to identify your audience community. I don't know that, but I will check it out. Thank you for sharing. Appreciate it. And
I think just before we finish, like there are things you guys can do to really like build that community. I think for a small business, you've got to win the hearts of your customers, especially your first customers. They're going to be your guardian angels. They're the ones basically buying into you, and you know they're the ones who can shout out about the business. So start building your Trustpilot score. And Trustpilot profile is a great way to just get brand awareness and start building trust with your customers. Depending what type of company you're looking to do, if you're in like fintech, for example, and you've got lots of users, you can do all these community online forums. I think it's an amazing way to build a community. And for example, one of our portfolio companies called Free Trades, they're like online stockbroking platform. Basically, they just raised some money on Crowdcube, and it was all through their community, pretty much. So I just think that shows the power of community. Don't do no reply emails. I absolutely hate those. It basically means you don't want your customers to touch base with you. And I quite like what Charles Taylor does, the founder Nick Wheeler, which is a men's suit company, but he's quite a well-known entrepreneur. He signs all of his emails, and there's actually a letter on the back of every product from the founder. It's very personal, but I just think if you can build that personal connection with your customers, it's so cool and it can go so far. And I think just think of a way to keep in touch with your customers as you start to grow. And you know, if sadly the business doesn't work out, don't feel ashamed to don't tell anyone. At least you learned and go out and start something else. For sure.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with that. You know, again, I've had my share of failures as well as successes, and it all, you know, joins the dots when you look over your shoulder and you're trying to work out how you ended up where you are now. It all makes sense when you do that, and you've had failures to learn from. 100%. And Ollie, just to finish up, then we're coming up to the mark. So from your point of view, anything that any future plans you got? You've obviously got the podcast, you've got your role at Draper Esprit. You looking to expand on that at all? Does that keep you pretty busy by the sound if you're seeing like 3,000 companies a year between you all?
A little bit. I love it. I think there's so much opportunity for the tech world. Gonna continue working on the podcasts. Continue to back amazing entrepreneurs through Draper Esprit. I'm starting to build my network, like I said, outside the entrepreneurs world, just with my guests on the podcast show. And I always try and set myself new challenges every year. So I'm trying to learn a new language at the moment. But when I have the time,
which one?
You can actually sit down. I'm Vietnamese.
Whoa, that's left field.
Yeah. Well, a lot of my friends are from that part of the world, so
right.
I think it's just such a cool language, and I love the people.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I'm all about, setting yourself new challenges. I ended up running a marathon during lockdown for my troubles, which furthest I run before was 3 miles. So went from 3 to 26 in 6 weeks. Yeah, 100%. I have my best ideas when I'm running. Really clears my head, I have to say.
I've seen you running, actually. Not literally, but I've seen on your Facebook. Every day, didn't you?
Yeah, well, 5 days. Yeah, five days, and then the other days I'm doing weight sessions to try to build the strength and endurance up in the old little leggies. And yoga every day. Been doing that for a year now. Yoga every day. Love it.
Wow. I need to try it. I find it very difficult to concentrate and stay focused when you've got a million things going on. I think yoga might help. It's
great for that, absolutely. And it came from literally interviewing some of my podcasts for an app called Fit, FIT, which is like a streaming fitness app, and they've got like Fern Cotton is their like main ambassador, Radio 1 DJ, etc. And it's just chatting to those 3 founders up at the Olympic Village up in London there in Stratford, and they got me onto it. And as you do when you meet, you try their products out and become a huge fan. So it's all good. It's all good. So look, thank you.
Well, if any of your listeners want to get in touch, just feel free to add me on LinkedIn or follow me on Twitter. Hopefully quite easy to find. And I'd love to connect you. And this has been great. I absolutely loved it. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, literally Ollie Forsyth, dead easy to connect with Ollie. You won't find many, if any, other Ollie Forsyths on LinkedIn. And likewise, I'm always happy to connect with everybody on these platforms online. And I'll send everybody an email as well, and I'll get the link for your LinkedIn profile, and I'll add it in there as well. So thank you for your comments, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Alex.
You're welcome. Thank you for those of you watching on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. Thank you, Ollie. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the week, buddy.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye now.
You too. Bye.